I started seeing a pattern of faces in trees, on the ground, in bark.
That's why we love the UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge.
Our daughter Angela, Ross and I were all living off-grid in a small cabin over in the Okanagan Highlands.
Get back, move back, step back. Y'all better not touch me. Blessings everyone, it's Ross. Welcome back to episode 4 of the UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge 2019 wrap-up / 2020 kickoff virtual video Pseudo-Cyber party. Nailed that in one take. This replaces the party we normally have at Seven Hills Running Shop every year to give out the awards and rank all the finishers for the UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge, as well as announcing the new routes for the coming year. You all probably already know that if you're tuning in to watch this, because otherwise, I don't know, why are you here? Regardless, that's what's going on. We can't get together because of COVID-19. That's why I'm in the middle of the ocean on this ship right now where it's safe and I don't have to worry about, I'm just kidding, I'm at home. Like I'm supposed to be. But we got a lot to cover this episode, so we're going to get right into it. I want to let you know that at the end of this 5-week process we've been doing, where we name all the awards and prizes and all that and show people's bonus points videos, and the big thing, of course, is reveal the routes for the year. Next week we're going to have the 5th and final route. So after that, I'm going to put out a video that collects the descriptions of all 5 of the routes, so you won't have to go through and watch all of these videos if you haven't been watching them, or if you just need to look up the specifics about one of the routes. They will also be posted on Ultra Sign Up, so the information will be on there. Links and info will be posted in the Facebook group and will be on the new website when it is up. It's not up yet, but it will be before long. So long term, that's the place to look, ultrapedestrianwilderness.challenge.com, or the Facebook group UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge. Or on Ultra Sign Up, you can search UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge or just UltraPedestrian, or I believe UPWC will all bring it up. So the information on the 5 new challenges will all be up there. This episode, we're pretty excited because we're going to be telling you about our first ever challenge outside of Washington State, and it's a very unique and cool one. But first, we're going to go to UPWC co-founder Kathy Vaughn, and she's going to announce this year's Trail Totem winners. Kathy?
Hello. Thank you for joining me for the UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge Trail Totem Award Ceremony. My name is Kathy, and I am half of Team UltraPedestrian, the founders and designers and the folks behind the Wilderness Challenge. I came up with the idea of making trail totems for all of the participants way back when we first started, and we only had a handful of folks out there adventuring and participating in the Wilderness Challenge, and I was able to do it, and it was quite a bit of fun. Now we have quite a few people, and I'm so happy. Ross and I are both pleased to have so many people participating, but I'm unable to make a trail totem for everyone. So I have chosen 4 recipients for trail totems this year. This is an example here of one of the dolls that I make. I use wool, natural fibers, recycled fabrics, hemp, silk, little treasures that I find. My daughter knitted this hat for this doll, and they're stuffed with wool, and the bottom of the dolls, they're stuffed with an herb that helps to create a sense of calm during a moment when you need that on the trail. So they're often stuffed with lavender or sage or some herb from nature that I gather. Most of the dolls also are embellished with a treasure that I find on the trail, oftentimes when I'm on a long through hike or a long trail run, I will find little bits of twine, broken jewelry like one earring or a couple of beads off of a string of beads from a bracelet, even a really colorful bright piece of lichen or moss, and I pick those up and I use those on the dolls. They're also stuffed with wool, and I've used mountain goat wool that I've gathered from Mount Adams and other cool high places where mountain goats like to live. I have some other examples. This is one of the trail totems that will be given as a gift for one of the recipients this year, and here are some of the materials as I stage them and get ready to put one of these special little dolls together. You can carry them in a pocket on your running vest or pack. You can pin them with a safety pin somewhere on your pack or on your running clothes, and they just help keep you company and give you a little partner or a way to lift up your spirits if you need that on the trail. It's just a really special little doll that I hand sew, and I come up with recipients each year. I started making these dolls when my daughter was in preschool, and I got to the point where I created my own business called Mountain Mama Dolls. And I did that when our daughter Angela, Ross and I were all living off-grid in a small cabin over in the Okanagan Highlands, and I had a lot of inspiration to create these little entities. We lived along a creek, and our neighbor drew this with colored pencil for me. He also painted a beautiful sign. The recipients this year are Katie T-Girl. She earned the overall FKT in 36 hours for the Purple Rainbow Loop. I love Katie's hand-sewn dresses that she wears for her adventures. I love her spirit, and I love the idea that she went out and just took this overall FKT down. So congratulations, Katie. Also, Ellen Maude is one of the recipients of a trail totem this year. She joined 3 other ladies, Sarah, Heidi, and Marna, for the Olympic Coast Route, a super challenging route along the Washington coast, very rugged. It involves following tide charts and going up and around tides when needed to, up on these oftentimes climbing rope ladders to get up and around. A really super challenging route. I really enjoyed Ellen's heartfelt, honest trip report. I read it right after she wrote it, and I thought of her and connected with her, and she did not actually finish the route with the other 3 ladies. She DNF'd at Rialto Beach. She is also going to be a recipient of a trail totem. Also, Charlie Quinn. He was able to complete an all-around circumnavigation of Mount St. Helens on the Lewitt Trail and then summit Mount St. Helens afterwards. And this is just really follows the spirit of ultra-pedestrianism, the challenge that we set forth, some of the ideas of adventures that Ross and I come up with ourselves. And I loved this idea and this accomplishment. So Charlie Quinn will also receive a trail totem. Jamie Nelson is the last recipient of the trail totem for the 2019 season. She completed one of my favorite routes, again over in the Okanagan, the area where Ross and I lived and raised our daughter for many years. And I chose the Windy Peak Loop as one of the routes a few years ago. It hasn't been completed by a lot of people, but I loved that Jamie took it on solo. She earned firsties, lasties, and also the fastest completion of 2019. So thank you again for all of you who have participated, who support, who understand, and who love the Wilderness Challenge. please continue to participate once those woods, those wild places, the national parks, the state parks, once everything is open again and safe for us to go out adventuring, even solo, with partners, please consider joining a wilderness challenge route again for this year. There's so many to choose from, and I hope you'll take a look at the route that I designed for this year called the Was Up Loop route. And thank you so much for being a part of this really supportive, warm, wonderful, adventuresome community. Give thanks for life.
Thank you, Kathy. If you're one of the fortunate winners of a trail totem this year, you can rank yourself amongst the coolest, most badass people on earth because we all carry one. This is one that Kathy made for me years ago. This trail totem has traveled with me to South Africa, Lesotho, Madagascar, Fiji, and of course all sorts of crazy places within the United States of America and North America. So I carry a trail totem, and if you're one of the lucky few, you'll be carrying one this year too.
So for our extra bonus footage for the UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge, we wanted to talk a little bit about 5 reasons why it's awesome. Christie, we'll give you your first reason.
That you could have picked different courses. You never have to stick with the same one, and every year they come out with new ones. That's my reason 1.
Number 2, I really think that the UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge is awesome because you don't have to be such an elite athlete to accomplish a route. There's no time cut off. It takes a lot of the pressure that you have from organized races off. Number 3,
I like that they're affordable. That you don't have to pay $150 to go do an ultra.
Number 4 would be the amount of support that we get in the community for beta, encouragement. Last year we did our first run, so it was cool. A lot of people encouraging us. The community that surrounds us is awesome. So, for a 5? Is this 5?
I would have to say that I like that they're unsupported because it makes them unique, and you have to rely on yourself and your legs and go your speed, and makes it more of a challenge.
I like how, to write on that there, I like how they're unique for every person. It doesn't matter how many people run a route. Each person has such a crazy and different experience that it really makes it special. And that's why we love the UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge. Woo!
So next we get to the big announcement, which is the 4th challenge for this year, the 4th new challenge, the 4th route for 2020. And this is our first ever route outside of Washington State. And this is the Oregon Badlands Challenge. To tell you about it is Renee, Shira, Patrick, long distance hiker, through hiker, triple crowner, and she also works for the Oregon Natural Desert Association, where she is the Oregon Desert Trail coordinator. So she's going to give you all the specifics about the challenge. Renee?
Everyone, my name is Renee Patrick, and I'm the Oregon Desert Trail coordinator for the Oregon Natural Desert Association. I want to tell you a little bit about the Badlands Challenge. So to give you some background, I'll start at the beginning. So I'm a long distance hiker, much like Kathy and Ross, and I started hiking almost 20 years ago on long distance trails. So after I completed the Triple Crown, I was on the Continental Divide Trail in 2015. I returned home to Bend, Oregon, and discovered there was an opportunity to help the next long distance route come into existence. So I started working on the Oregon Desert Trail about 4.5 years ago. And so through that process, I started looking at, the places where we have opportunities to do trail work. And so some of those places are in the Badlands Wilderness. So this is a wilderness area really close to Bend, and actually is the start of our 750-mile long Oregon Desert Trail. Now, ONDA decided to create the Oregon Desert Trail as a way to connect people to the landscape in Eastern Oregon, to really find that personal connection to habitat, to healthy ecosystems, to the animals that live there, to the plants that sometimes are found no other places than in Oregon's high desert. So ONDA's been working for over 30 years to protect, defend, and restore high desert places, like the Oregon Badlands Wilderness. And so some of the work they do is in restoration, so stewardship trips, and that sort of, as I was looking for what stewardship is possible in the Oregon Desert, along the Oregon Desert Trail, the Badlands Wilderness was at the top of the list. So the land managers for the Oregon Desert Trail is the Bureau of Land Management, the Prineville District. And so they had some goals to help create more trails in this small wilderness and help connect some of the existing trail systems. So through partnerships with the BLM and a couple years of trail work with volunteers, I was able to lead groups and help connect some of those trail systems. So in the end, we had 50.1 miles of trail in this Badlands Wilderness that could be hiked, could be run, could be explored on horseback. Because it is a wilderness area, mechanized transportation isn't allowed, so you have to use your 2 feet or your horse's 4 feet to get through and experience all the miles of trail we have. So in 2009, this area was protected as a wilderness. So ONDA was really involved in the effort with our local business leaders and with our Oregon senators to get permanent protection for this area. And some of the things that are so amazing about the Oregon Badlands Wilderness, there's lava flows from these shield volcanoes that came up and spread little fingers of lava all throughout the area. There are cultural artifacts to find. There are petroglyphs of people who have been living in the high desert for thousands and thousands of years. There are ancient juniper trees that dot the landscape. There are, traces of homesteading history when the West was getting settled. There are really interesting plants and animals. That's a winter habitat range for elk. You'll see pronghorn, coyotes, lots of different birds. So it's a really important ecological area. So when this area was protected as wilderness, a lot of the routes there had been roads. So it's unfortunately was used as a dumping ground for a lot of time. And so there were caches of discarded cans and garbage. And so a lot of effort went into cleaning up that area. And then the roads that had gone through the Badlands Wilderness were turned into the trails we have. And so through those existing 2-track trails and the trails that ONDA helped build, in last year, in 2019, we realized this is 10 years. We've had this wilderness area for 10 years. How can we celebrate? And so as a through hiker, I thought, well, let's challenge people to hike all 50.1 miles. Now that the trail connections are complete in this small wilderness area, let's see if people want to go out and hike or run a horseback ride, all of it. So we put together a map and cataloged all of the trails and the mileages. And it's a difficult thing because it's not, you can't hike on one trail and complete all 50.1 miles. You'll have to go out and back. There's little loops you can do, but there's also little stems that you need to connect. I propose, maybe you could hike cross country and connect some of those trails. So use some of those navigation skills that are so important on a route like the Oregon Desert Trail. or maybe people want to go out and back and you'll have to backtrack in order to complete all miles. So really, you're going to do much more than 50.1 miles to complete the whole route. And I wanted folks to also challenge themselves to learn something about this area, learn something new while they're out there completing this challenge. And so we've suggested that folks, take some books or learn something about the flora or the fauna, the animals as they're out there, and to write a haiku, which is a Japanese form of poetry that's 5 syllables, 7 syllables, and 5 syllables, a very short poem. So while you're out there, try to look around, see the territory, get inspired, and write your haiku and submit it to us. So we had a number of people complete the whole Badlands Challenge last year, including Ross and Kathy. A lot of people wrote really creative, fun, beautiful haikus. People shared some of the things that they learned while they were out there. And this challenge lives beyond the 10-year anniversary. This challenge is always and anytime. So at any point, you can download the map, head out to the Badlands, and work on completing all the trails. Now, I've been working on completing the Badlands Challenge. I did not finish it all in 2019, so I'm still picking away at those miles. But it's a reason to go back to the Badlands again and again and visit these places, discover why it was important to protect as wilderness, and really dive in and form your personal connection to this landscape. Now, ONDA works in a lot of other places throughout the high desert, and the Oregon Desert Trail connects those places. So we were also very pivotal in getting the Steens Mountain Wilderness protected in the year 2000. It's actually the first cow-free wilderness in the country. And we have other wilderness campaigns or permanent protection campaigns ongoing. There's one in the Owyhee Canyonlands area, one in a place called Sutton Mountain along the John Day River. And there's lots of other things we do across the landscape to really help improve the resiliency of these places, like planting trees along high desert rivers and creeks. And we take down fences that are no longer needed and hamper animal migration, like for the pronghorn, which is the Oregon Desert Trail's mascot. So again, I encourage you to explore the Badlands, do the Badlands Challenge, or just immerse yourself in the public lands that are close to your home and really come away with having learned something about this place and understand why it's so important to have public lands like these, especially places close to urban areas. It's a place of respite, a place of peace, a place of solitude, things that we need more than ever to stay healthy, balanced, and so we can be our best. So hope to see you out there on the trail.
Thank you, Renee. We're super stoked to be doing this unique challenge this year. So to clarify, to make sure that you understand the goal, what you need to do is you have to tat the Oregon Badlands. So that's T-A-T-T, touch all the trails. There's 50 miles of trails in the Oregon Badlands. You have to touch all of them, and you have to do it in a single push. Now this can be over the course of 5 days backpacking, making camp at night. It can be ultra run style, but it has to be in a single push. You can't leave the Badlands and come back and do more. You can do that for the Oregon Badlands Challenge through ONDA, but for the Wilderness Challenge, for the UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge, it has to be in a single push by whatever method you choose, whether it's backpacking, fast packing, ultra running, long distance endurance, hopscotching, bonus points for that. So in addition to that, we have an ethic of unsupported that we follow in the UPWC. However, there is extremely, extremely limited water sources in the Badlands. There's only one that I know of that you can hit at one of the trailheads or right near one of the trailheads, and it's actually a diversion ditch of a river that's used for agricultural purposes, irrigation purposes. So I don't even know how good an idea it is to drink that water. You can. I would definitely filter it, and I'm pretty sure that I've drunk it actually now, now that I think about it. But We are going to add a caveat for the Oregon Badlands Challenge and allow water caching and actually encourage water caching, because it's a very hot, dry area and you're definitely going to need water to do this safely and enjoyably. So we are allowing people to place water caches, which would technically violate a pure unsupported ethic. If you can do it foot powered or on a bike or anything like that, then that's definitely bonus points, but it's pretty challenging to do that. That would add a whole other dimension to it. So we are allowing you to drive around and place water caches by vehicle for this one challenge and only this challenge. And of course, as Renee said, you do have to submit a haiku. So that is the specific content that needs to be produced for the Oregon Badlands Challenge. Everybody who completes this under the UPWC guidelines will receive a finisher's patch, as with all other UPWC routes. However, this challenge is a fundraiser for the Oregon Natural Desert Association, ONDA. So every penny of your sign-up fees and any additional donations that you make through Ultra Sign-Up or PayPal or whatever means will go to the Oregon Natural Desert Association to help fund their efforts to protect and set aside wild places in Oregon for all of us to enjoy and draw inspiration from.
You did it!
Very triumphant. And there was much rejoicing.
I couldn't even lift my arms over my head. We just had to go to this tree and it took us like 15 minutes.
We all had to help.
And
We know the tree.
We had to help, but we were like,
You've never seen us like this before. We're like,
okay, form a triangle. Heidi, grab on. Okay, lift.
We know the tree. You guys are incredible. So proud of you guys.
thank you guys so much.
Hello, fellow UltraPedestrians. My name is Sarah Brouwer, and this is my second year participating in routes on the UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge. This year, I did the Olympic Coast Traverse, the Easy Pass, and Chinook routes. My friend has nominated me for some bonus points for Best Hallucination on my Olympic Coast route. And so here's my explanation of that. My friends Marna, Heidi, Ellen, and I set off down the coast of Washington 2 in the morning. As you know, with that route, it's all about timing of the tides, and so that's the best time for us at that time that we went. And so the part where the hallucination starts, and this is still up for debate, you guys. We have to go back and verify whether or not this is hallucination or real, is the very last overland that you are going through at the very end. So we were approximately 31 hours into our route. We had stopped once to lay down for about an hour, but other than that, continuous moving down the coast. And this last overland we hit, and we were exhausted, we're tired. A little bit of backstory is I had gotten sick right before we started, so I was actually running a little low-grade fever. Anyway, we're going through the woods. I was in the front, and I saw a couple of robots. Now clearly, I looked over and I saw this metallic robot in the woods, and I knew that's not real. There's not a metallic robot in these woods. I'm hallucinating. Maybe I should tell my friends, but that's fine. I know that it's not real, so I'm going to keep on going. So we carry on, me knowing I'm hallucinating, but it's fine. Well, as we went on, the metallic robots, obviously hallucination, only saw a couple of them, we're good to go. But at this point, and I believe this was probably around 9 in the morning, so we had good daylight, but a lot of trees. It's a very wooded area, this last overland. I started seeing a pattern of faces in trees, on the ground, in bark pieces on the ground, like they're purposely placed there. They were there on purpose. Somebody had drawn these faces on this bark. Trees had... Clearly there was an artist who was living in these woods, taking pieces of wood and bark and creating people, faces, things in the trees. So I'm seeing this, and I finally say to my friends, I'm like, are you guys seeing this too? And they were. So this is where we have to go back and double check on this, because as far as we can tell, we all saw it. Anyway, we're moving along, feeling very concerned about who this strange artist is, what is going on in the woods here. And my brain tells me, I think that the crazy artist who's making these things lives here still, and he's watching us. And so my friend, whenever we would see something and she goes, oh my gosh, that's so creepy, I'd say, zh. Don't say creepy, it's art. This really happened. So I'm trying to convince my friends not to upset the insane artist living in the woods. At one point I realized, gosh, I should take some pictures, because when we get back, I'm gonna tell people about this, and then they're gonna go, what, did you have pictures? Of course I have pictures. Well, of course I'm gonna take some pictures. But I was so paranoid that this artist was living in the woods watching us. Somehow he was moving through the woods on a path that we didn't see. He's watching us, that I didn't want to like get my phone out and take a specific picture, because then he'd know we were on to him. So I had to take out my phone and just kind of... I'm going to send those pictures in. You guys can judge for yourself. But the consensus amongst our group, now that we're home, we've looked through things, we've had a lot of time, is that we need to go back. We need to go back and visit this spot to see, because I didn't see it on anybody else's trip reports. So, challenge for next year's Olympic Coast people, the final overland, do you see tree people? Get back to me, please.
So I would like to share my side of the story of when Sarah, Heidi, and Marna finished the Olympic Coast route back in June. They had reached the southern terminus in Oil City, and we were there to pick them up. And they came out of the forest, they were very excited, and Sarah came rushing up to us and said, I have to show you these pictures of this artwork that we saw. There were all these faces in the trees and on the logs and everything, and it was amazing and creepy, but amazing. And so she pulls out her phone and she starts showing us pictures, and she said, do you see the face here? And then in this one, you can see it it's in the bark, and there's these sticks here, and it's like people. There were no faces. It was just bark, or at least the pictures were just depicting that. But she was so excited. So we just said, wow, that's great. And they had been awake for well over 24 hours at this stage. And said, okay, that's fantastic. Why don't we get you in the car and get you some clothes and some food? But she was insisting that she had seen these faces, and she just had to show us these pictures. And we didn't see anything. So following that, I'd also like to point out she has never wavered on this story. She even followed up by calling a park ranger in the Olympic National Park and asked them about if there was an artist in this area that was creating these faces in the trees. And I believe they just said, wouldn't surprise us. There's a lot of weird stuff that happens out there. So she's never wavered on this story, and I think it's definitely worth some bonus points about this hallucination. And maybe there are faces in the trees, and she just had super photos. I don't know. But it was just bark.
I love that. Just for the record, all of that was super cool. You talk about comparing experiences, which is one of the main goals of the UPWC, And it's really fascinating when you're comparing experiences with somebody whose perception of reality doesn't agree with yours. So I really enjoy what we just saw there. And it makes me think of something that I've proposed before, but I think that there's a difference between a hallucination and a figment, like a figment of your imagination and a hallucination. And I will describe what I believe that difference is. So I'd be interested to know your thoughts, however you want to address that. You can certainly leave a comment below, or I don't know, however else you can hire a plane and do it in skywriting. That would be super cool, but I don't know if I would see it. But whatever means you want to share, I'd be interested in your opinions. And it could be in a bonus points video. Just a reminder, the bonus points bonanza is going on through episode 5. So anybody who gets in bonus points videos before, I can't remember what I said, 6 p.m. I think, Monday, May 4th. So that's next Monday if you're watching this on the day it's released, will be included, and all of your names, the person submitting it and anybody included in the video, your names will be put into a drawing where we're giving away 2 $50 gift certificates to Seven Hills Running Shop in Seattle, provided by Seven Hills Running Shop, which is the preeminent trail running specific store in Washington, and has been a supporter not only of Team UltraPedestrian, Kathy and I, but of the UltraPedestrian Wilderness Challenge since the very beginning. And they're continuing to show their support even right now when the brick and mortar store is closed for walk-in business. They still provided these prizes for the Wilderness Challenge participants. So that lets you know how unique their vision is, that they get what we're doing here and they support it. So, and of course, a lot of you will be going by there to pick up your prizes and patches anyway. So just be sure to show some love when you're in there, and, you know, even buy some stuff if you want. So 2 $50 gift certificates will be given away. We will announce that in the next episode. There's no reason not to. So we will have that drawing and we will announce the winners in the next episode, in episode 5. But getting down to it, I think that there's a difference between a hallucination and a figment. A hallucination, by my definition, is an instance where you cannot tell the difference between objective reality, presuming there is such a thing, and your perception of reality. Whereas a figment is only momentarily that you can't tell the difference, and it almost immediately corrects itself. I'll give 2 examples from my personal experience, and you can consider what everything we just heard about was, and relate it to your own personal experiences. But one time when Kathy and I were running out at Baker Lake, trying to think what we were probably yo-yoing the Baker Lake Trail. I think we were doing a double yo-yo, so we were doing essentially a 100K, roughly 62 miles, and it was late at night, kind of tired, and in my headlight beam, I saw this small cat, kind of like a bobcat, but smaller than a bobcat, but bigger than a house cat, but a wild cat, and it was bob-tailed. And it had that build like a bobcat where the back end is big, and it was perched above a hole, kind of like where a stump is or where a root mat has been pulled up. And right after I looked at it, it darted into that hole. And it was, of course, one of the well-known burrowing cats of Baker Lake, of which there are none that I know of. It's not a real thing. And I immediately, after I saw it, I think I made an exclamation in surprise and wonder real quick and tried to point it out to Kathy, and by the time I was doing that I realized it hadn't been real, and I explained it to her. So to me that's an example of a figment where momentarily I believed what was going on, but then my brain almost instantly corrected it and I realized that what I had seen wasn't actually there. As an example of a hallucination, the first time, and possibly, I believe the only time that I've ever really hallucinated at this point, was during my Double Wonderland project back in 2012, I think, 2012. And I had had this vision of being the first person to do the Wonderland Trail, which is 93 miles around the base of Mount Rainier, once in one direction, then immediately turning around and do it the other direction in a single push, so 186 miles. And this was near the end as I was climbing up to Indian Bar up from Indian Bar with Trey Bailey, up toward Panhandle Gap, and then going to drop down back to White River where I was going to finish. So this was at about mile 178 and 176, somewhere in there. And I had been awake and moving for about 80 hours at that point, I'm going to guess. So I was definitely sleep deprived, definitely exhausted. And as we were climbing up, I looked off to the side and there was a bush, and I saw a bear come up and look at me over the bush and then turn around and start back down out of sight. And I cried out to Trey, and I'm like, there's a bear. And he like looks and he's like, where, what? And I kind of think, my impression is that the bear was real, that the bear actually did that. Because that's kind of realistic behavior for a bear. And then I looked again, and what I thought was a bush, what had been a bush when the bear peeked over it, suddenly seemed to be a large ruminant laying down on the ground. And I thought it was an elk at first, and so I said, oh no, wait, it's an elk. And of course Trey hadn't seen the bear, and so now he's looking for an elk, and he's like, where? And then I noticed it had a young one with it, a little calf that was nestled down next to it, and they were both just these dark black silhouettes. I couldn't see any definition in them. It was just a silhouette of this large ruminant that didn't look exactly like an elk and had glowing red eyes, and then its little calf. And then suddenly, like when you're out mushroom hunting, I don't know how many people have hunted mushrooms, but a lot of the time what happens is you can't find any mushrooms, and then you finally find one, and as soon as you find one, it stimulates the pattern matching center in your brain, and you look at that one mushroom, and then you look up at the forest floor and you'll see 20, 30, 40 of them that you couldn't see before. So it was like that. All of a sudden, this one mama and calf is like my vision panned out, and all of a sudden they were just all over the place. There were tons of them, and in my brain just fully formed the phrase mythical mama beast popped into my head. So that's what these were. They were mythical mama beasts, and there were just a bunch of them. And so all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, there's tons of them. And of course Trey can't see them, and I started throwing rocks at them, because I'm like, okay, if I startle them and they run, then Trey will be able to see them. So I started throwing rocks at them. They're all just laying there, and of course Trey's not seeing anything happen other than me throw rocks like over the side of this ledge. And finally I said, okay, and I started to go off trail to climb over to them to try to prove to Trey that they existed. And knowing where I was doing this in retrospect, I could have taken a pretty bad fall, potentially life-threatening, where this was, because where I was going to go off the trail, there's just, you know, a steep hillside. So since I was expecting to interact with creatures that probably weren't there, it may not have ended well for me had I been unaccompanied. But Trey was there, and he talked me back onto the trail and convinced me that they didn't exist and that we needed to keep moving. And then the odd thing was, we went up just a couple more switchbacks, and then we flushed a group of mountain goats. And Trey saw them first and cried out, and he's like, mountain goats. Then I looked and I saw them. And I just thought that was really unfair that I could see his ruminants, but he couldn't see mine. So to me, that's the definition of a hallucination. To me, that's sort of the definition between Figment and a hallucination. So let me know what you think. Now, going forward with this, we're going to have the 5th episode next time, where we will announce our final route. We will announce the 2 $50 gift certificate winners for the bonus points bonanza. And if there's something else you need or want me to cover, if you have any questions, if there's something you don't understand, if there's a point in the rules that you'd like clarified, or if you have suggestions, anything like that, leave a comment below and I will include a response in the next video. So hopefully our public lands are opened up soon and we can all get out there and have some amazing experiences and challenge ourselves and rise to the occasion, or come up epically short and share our experiences with one another about it.